The fire has faded low now, and the coals whisper quietly in their bed of ash. Somewhere in the room, a timber beam creaks, stretching slowly as the night air settles in. You're not in your room anymore, not in the world you know. Tonight, your journey begins in a place that smells of wet wool, sour ale, and the unwashed feet of strangers. Yes, welcome to the warm, damp, gloriously unhygienic embrace of the medieval inn, the place where merchants snore like oxen, lice run local government, and your best-case scenario is that the soup doesn't stare back. In this sleepy little tale, you'll step into the shoezor rather, the flea-bitten straw bedding of a weary traveler. No name, no nobility, just another anonymous body seeking warmth, food, and if God is merciful, a chamber pot. From the shared bed that already smells suspiciously like last week's stew, to the delightful surprise of rats playing footsie with your boots, you'll discover why one night in this place could break even the hardiest soul. And hey, if history's odd little corners like this make you exhale through your nose and wonder what else your textbook skipped, maybe consider sticking around. I'll be here every night telling the stories no one bothered to make a movie about. The first breath you take is a mistake, heavy with damp fur and something sour. You wake slowly, as if your soul has to decide whether to re-enter this world. Your eyes open in the dark, unsure if it is still night or merely the inside of something wooden. The ceiling is low, slanted, made of rough-hewn beams darkened with time, sagging slightly as if exhausted by the centuries. There is movement beside you, warm, breathy, rhythmic. Someone else is asleep. Someone large, judging by the wheezing. Beneath you is not a bed, not really. More a sack of straw that's surrendered long ago, pressed flat by the weight of too many bodies before yours. It pokes through thin linen and scratches the back of your neck. You shift, slightly. The rustle is louder than you expect, and something skitters away in response. Perhaps a beetle, perhaps something with fur. You inhale deeply and instantly regret it. The air is sour thick with old sweat, mildew, wood smoke, and the unmistakable trace of someone who forgot to step outside before relieving themselves. Your nose crinkles, but there is no escape from the smell. It is in the walls, in the floorboards, in the mattress, in you. You blink again. There's a thin sliver of dawn leaking through a cracked shutter, just enough light to reveal what you already suspected. You are not alone. A man lies beside you, mouth agape, drooling softly onto his own beard. He wears a hood, his boots are still on. One hand clutches a small pouch as if, even in sleep, he fears its loss. Another figure lies near the door, curled tightly, clutching something like a bottle or a club. Your joints ache. The chill from the stone wall behind you has crept into your spine. You sit up slowly, head pounding slightly. As if ale was involved. It wasn't, that would have cost too much. But the smell of it is still on your neighbor's breath. The room is cramped, cruder than you remembered if you remember it at all. Wooden walls stained with oil and age, iron hooks on beams, dangling rags. A small hearth, nearly out, its coals sighing soft little breaths as they fade. One window, covered by a cloth so full of holes, it now acts more as polite suggestion than curtain. You don't know whose room this is, but it is yours for the moment. That's how inns work here. Privacy is not a service offered. You paid for space, not solitude, and space well. You shift again. You've paid just enough for half a spot on the straw. You try standing, the floor greets your bare feet like a cold slap. Stone, damp, maybe even alive in places. There's a smear near the doorway that might have once been food. Might still be. It's hard to say. You inch across the room, careful not to wake the sleeping mass beside you, but the floor betrays you. The wooden plank creaks like a warning bell, and the figure near the bottle grunts in his sleep. At the far corner, a bucket, tall, dark, with a cloth over it that does nothing to hide what's inside. The smell guides you to its purpose. You turn away. You'd rather not look directly at it before breakfast. There's no wash basin, no mirror, no towel, but there's a cracked bowl on a stool with a film of water, and a sliver of soap that may have belonged to a king. Long ago, you wipe your face with your sleeve instead, then pause. The sleeve smells worse than your face did. You accept defeat. This is not a morning for vanity. From somewhere downstairs, a sound, the clink of metal, a pan dragged across stone, then a voice, a thick, low mutter, followed by a laugh that sounds more like coughing. The inn is stirring. You bend to find your boots. Only one is there. The other has wandered or been borrowed. You search in silence, mindful of your neighbors. The lost boot is under the bench, half filled with straw and something round you don't inspect too closely. When you put it on, it's still damp. You consider your belongings. A satchel, light. You open it and check a crust of bread, now harder than ethics in a tax office, and a copper coin that feels lonelier than it should. You close the bag and exhale. The day has not yet begun, and already, it demands patience. The door sticks as you try to open it. Its hinges groan like an old man rising from prayer. You wince, but push through. The hallway greets you with gloom. One torch flickers near the stairs, casting crooked shadows on the wattle walls. The floorboards shift beneath your feet, complaining softly as you descend. You catch a smell that stirs something deep in your gut, not hunger, precisely. But it's lesser cousin curiosity. Something's cooking, or boiling, or fermenting. It's hard to say, but it's warm, and it pulls you downward. You reach the common room. It is already half full. Travelers slumped over tables, a dog scratching itself in the corner. The fire has been stoked, and a kettle rattles gently over the embers. Behind the bar, the innkeeper, broad, balding, wearing an apron so stained it tells its own history. He does not greet you. He does not need to. You are not here for pleasantries. You are here to survive. He gestures at the bench. You sit. The table is sticky. The bowl that arrives is brown, lumpy, and steams faintly. You ask no questions. Neither does it. You eat, slowly, watching, listening, around you. The murmurs of a dozen stories you'll never hear the end of. A man speaks of a bridge that fell. A woman hums a song with no words. Someone laughs too loud, then too long. The room shifts and lives around you, and you try to remember what brought you here. But your mind is already drifting again, softening like old parchment, blurring gently into the warmth of the fire and the sound of spoons scraping wood. You are still tired, but you will not return upstairs. Not yet. The day has begun. The air is heavier when you return, heavier with smoke, bodies, the faint must of wet cloth drying too close to heat. The warmth of the fire never reaches the upper floors. That's where the cold lives, in the beams, in the stone, in the space between your bones and your skin. You climb the stairs with slow steps, each one creaking under your weight like a reluctant oath. Your head bows slightly as you reach the landing, not from respect, but because the roof slants low enough to demand it. You turn left, to the room you've claimed but never truly owned, and as you press the latch, the truth returns to you in a single breath. You are not alone. The scent hits you first, not new, not different, just deeper, riper. A sort of oily musk that belongs not to one person, but to years of people breathing, sweating, coughing into these same walls. You step inside anyway, because there is nowhere else to go. The fire in the hearth has died down further. The last glow of coals flickers in the ash like dying stars. You glance to the bed, or what passes for one. Hez still there, the man from earlier. You don't know his name. You don't think he knows yours. That's part of the arrangement. Names are luxuries here. You paid for a sliver of straw and a few hours without the rain on your face. Not introductions. He's turned in his sleep, now facing you. His breath flows over the space between you, warm and foul. His lips move a little, twitching with dreams, one eye half open. You don't think he's awake. You hope he's not. You cross the room, stepping lightly. The floor complains again, more sharply this time. A loose plank tips slightly beneath your heel, and you freeze. His fingers twitch. You watch, still breathing, still sleeping. You move on. There's a second figure now. You didn't see them earlier, curled in the corner under a tattered cloak, bundled into themselves like a bundle of laundry forgotten by the fire. You squint in the dark. A child? No. Just small. Maybe a tinker's apprentice, or a thief. The lines blur here. The space you'd thought yours alone is not yours at all. Every corner harbors a sleeper, one snoring, one whimpering, one grinding his teeth loud enough to sand furniture. You ease down onto your portion of the straw. What's left of it? It's damp now. Someone spilled something, or perhaps just leaked. You shift, adjusting your cloak, pulling it around your neck. The corners barely cover your knees. You lay back. The ceiling stares down again. Dark wood, carved initials, scorch marks from old candles. You think about them, those who lay here before you. The woman who bled quietly in the night. The soldier who coughed until morning. The merchant who vanished before dawn, leaving behind only a wine stain and a rumor. You hear a cough, then another. Someone rolls over and mutters. A dog whines downstairs. A rat scurries across the beam overhead. You count the footsteps in your head, just to make sure it's only one. The man beside you moans, softly, as if in pain or pleasure, or some blend of both that you'd rather not contemplate. You shift further away, but there's nowhere to shift. The edge of the bed meets the wall. You are boxed in, a guest in someone else's sleep. The sounds of the inn are a lullaby for no one. The wind outside whistles through cracks in the shutters. Floorboards creak under the weight of a latecomer above. The door rattles slightly in its frame, as if sighing with the wind. You close your eyes, and for a moment, you forget who you are. You're not the traveler, not the guest, not even the person you were yesterday. You are part of this place now. A breath in its lungs, a whisper in its story. The snoring beside you deepens. It rattles, vibrates faintly through the straw, enters your bones like a distant drum. You open your eyes again, gaze into the dark. Try to imagine silence. It never comes. Not here. The shutters creak. Someone upstairs laughs a sharp, sudden bark of a sound, then nothing. The man beside you stirs, murmurs something in a tongue you don't know, or maybe no tongue at all. You want to sleep? You do. But sleeping here is not surrender. It is negotiation, it is trust, it is foolishness. Still you are tired, so you let your body settle. One leg curled beneath the other, cloak pulled tight, satchel tucked beneath your arm, your ear pressed to the straw. You can hear it, the slow sound of the inn breathing, wood expanding, walls shifting, rats daring, people dreaming. You're not sure when you drift, but eventually. The creaks become softer, the smells dull, the breath beside you less noticeable. You are not alone, but for now. You pretend you are, and that is almost enough. You wake not because you want to, but because something demands it. Not light, there's precious little of that. Not sound, though the building hums with its usual low chorus of snores, snorts, and the occasional cough. No, what wakes you is a chill, a creeping, crawling sort of cold that slithers up the soles of your feet and reminds you, quite pointedly, that something is missing. Your boots, both of them, gone. You sit up slowly, stiff-backed and cautious, as if any sudden movement might reveal this to be a joke played by the room itself. Your eyes adjust to the murk. A sliver of morning leaks through the ragged curtain like a blade of pale steel. The figures around you lie in the same awkward positions as before, some wrapped tightly, some sprawled like dropped laundry. But your boots are not where you left them. You remember placing them beside the straw mattress, soles up to dry. They were damp. Yes, but yours, worn into the shape of your step, stitched by someone long dead in a village you never learned the name of. You reach for the empty space where they should be and find only the cold, pitted wood. You exhale, quietly, not in frustration, not yet. You've done this before. Sliding your feet onto the floor is like dipping them into a forgotten well. The stone is slick in places, gritty in others. You feel something soft, then something sharp, a shard of bone, a chicken foot. You don't investigate. The floor tells stories you're not prepared to hear before breakfast. You rise and immediately step in something wet, not cold, not warm, somewhere in between, a puddle of unknown provenance. And in an inn like this, the range of possibilities is vast and discouraging. You lift your foot again, wiping it quickly against your cloak. You will pretend it was water. You must. Your toes curl instinctively as you move forward, padding softly past the lump that is your sleeping neighbor. He mumbles in his sleep something about goats or ghosts. You're not sure, and pulls a blanket tighter around his shoulders. You step over him. Near the wall, a pair of boots, not yours, too small. Next to those, another pair stuffed with straw, flaking with dried mud, still not yours. You crouch, inspecting them with the slow, reluctant eye of a desperate man. Then you see them. One boot, just one, near the door, upside down, slightly chewed on the rim. You hobble toward it, muttering silently to whatever gods might find pity on barefoot travelers. You retrieve it, turn it over. A dead beetle falls out. You shake it once, twice, then slide your foot in. Damp, but home. The other is nowhere in sight. You widen your search, under the bench, beneath the bundle of rags that might be a blanket. Behind the bucket, still nothing. You check again. Then you notice movement, a small, furtive shape disappearing around the stairwell post. You follow, quietly, carefully, and there, in the shadowed corner behind the grain sack. You find it, your second boot, and the rat that tried to make it a home. It stares at you. You stare back. There is a moment of shared understanding between you. This place does not belong to either of you, but you both survive here. You reclaim the boot with a slow, apologetic motion, allowing the rat to scamper off into darker places. It squeaks, disapproving. You whisper an apology and slide the boot on. Damp, cold, but matching. You are whole again, as whole as anyone can be. Barefoot in spirit, but booted in fact. Back upstairs. The others are beginning to stir. The murmur of voices rises like smoke from the straw. Someone swears. Someone laughs. A window opens with a grunt and the groan of old hinges. Fresh air leaks in. Startled to find itself in such company, you make your way to the stairs, boots squelching slightly as you go. The inn is waking. You pass the girl who sweeps the hall with a broom too short for her back. Her hair is tangled in a braid that's come undone at one end. She looks at your feet, then your eyes, then back to your feet. She says nothing, but you catch the brief smirk that slips across her face. You nod. The universal gesture of men who've retrieved their belongings from small, hairy thieves. Downstairs, the fire is burning again. The same bowl of porridge awaits, though it looks suspiciously like yesterday's, with a fresh ladle of hot water. The innkeeper grunts at you, which might be a greeting, or might be a warning. You sit anyway. Your boots squelch one last time as you cross your legs. No one notices. No one cares. This is the rhythm of the place. Things disappear, things return. If you're lucky, you're among the ones that come back. The morning has no gentleness in it, no soft light, no bird song, no warm towel or polite knock at the door. Just aches and obligations. You finish your thin breakfast, if it can be called, that staring into the wooden bowl, like it might offer a reason to remain seated. It does not. The porridge is gray and clings to the sides like something ashamed of itself. You wipe your mouth with the back of your sleeve. Stand, stretch, carefully. Because the ceiling is still low and your spine feels older than the century. Then you head back toward the stairs. You are not seeking comfort, or rest, or reflection. No. You are searching for the most infamous fixture in the medieval inn, the bucket. You've seen it already. Of course you have. It lingers in the corner of your room like a shameful secret that everyone knows, but no one speaks of. Lopsided, battered, rims stained with the ghosts of many regrettable meals. Its light-warped plank, balanced loosely atop, offers no illusion of dignity. You return to the room, and there it is, patient, proud, in its own grim way, a quiet tyrant over the choices you don't wish to make. You look at the others. Most are gone now, the straw matted with their shapes. One figure remains, sleeping deeply, mouth open, one leg twitching with dream. You hope it's a good one, or at least far away. You walk slowly toward the bucket. Every footstep feels loud now. Every creak in the floorboards an accusation. You don't want to use it, but the alternative is venturing outside. And outside is colder, less forgiving, lined with slush and slop and the watchful eyes of too many townsfolk pretending they don't see you. but noting everything just the same. You reach the bucket, lift the lid with 2 fingers, regret it instantly. The smell is something that defies language. Thick, sour, somehow warm, even in the morning chill. It clings to your nose, your tongue, your very thoughts. You place the lid gently aside, trying not to breathe too deeply. There is a cloth beside it, meant, perhaps, to drape over the head for modesty, or for denial. You use it as intended, mostly. The act itself is swift. It has to be. You stare firmly at the wall as you go, studying the ancient timber grain like it holds divine wisdom. A few deep breaths, some strategic shifting, and then, mercifully, it is done. You replace the lid, back away. Try not to remember. You sit down on the bench near the hearth afterward, hands tucked into your sleeves, trying to look like someone who has never seen a bucket, let alone used one. You fail. Obviously, everyone knows. No one says a word. This is the quiet understanding of the inn. We are all, at some point. The one with the bucket, later in the morning. You watch a young boy carry it down the stairs. He uses both hands. Doesn't spill a drop. His eyes are blank, unfazed by the horror of his task. This is his 3rd run today. Perhaps more. You hope he is paid. He is not. You follow him with your eyes as far as the doorway, where he vanishes behind the corner with that swaying, sloshing burden when he returns. The bucket is empty and steaming, and he looks not proud, but resolved, as if he understands a truth you've only just begun to learn in this place. Dignity is a luxury, and shame is optional. Back in the common room, the mood begins to shift. The first proper voices of the day rise above the coals. People are stirring. A merchant counts coins loudly at a table, each clink like a bell in a church of greed. A washerwoman argues about the price of eggs. A drunk begins his slow descent back into the bottle with all the ritual of a priest at mass. The innkeeper wipes the same spot on the bar. Again. Again. You wonder if he even sees it anymore, or if the motion is simply a spell he casts to keep from becoming one of the stains. You look around the room. You recognize no one, but you know them all. You've been each one, at some point, and might be again. Outside, someone slams a door. A dog barks. The wind picks up, sighing through the cracks in the shutters like an old man trying to remember a song. You draw your cloak tighter, not for warmth, for privacy, for the thin illusion that this day might be a little different. You know better, but for now, you've survived the bucket, and that, in this place, is as close to triumph as anyone gets. The morning moves on, not with grace, but with the stubborn inevitability of a cart stuck in mud groaning, creaking, dragging itself forward whether anyone wants it to or not. You sit at the long communal table now, shoulders hunched, hands folded tightly for warmth, listening to the steady thud of a ladle hitting wood. That's the rhythm of breakfast here. Not bells, not bird song, just ladle, bowl, thud. One bowl is set in front of you. No plate, no spoon yet. Either, just the bowl. Its contents steam faintly. As if reluctant to announce their presence, the smell reaches you first an onion, boiled well beyond its dignity, dissolved into something closer to a memory than a vegetable. Beneath that is the unmistakable scent of root vegetable turnip, perhaps. Or whatever passed for turnip after 3 days in a cellar, and behind it all the ghost of meat. Not meat itself, just the idea of it, a distant cousin of broth. You stare into it, it stares back. There is a slick sheen across the surface that suggests someone, somewhere, once had access to fat. Not much of it made it into your bowl. A few greenish flecks float near the edge, possibly herbs, possibly not. The innkeeper moves past you, slapping down a crust of bread beside the bowl. It's hard, dense. You test the edge with your thumb and immediately regret it. You don't blame the bread. It's doing its best. You are handed a spoon, wood, worn thin in the middle, curved more from use than design. The handle is warm from another's hand. You try not to think about that. You dip the spoon into the bowl. It offers resistance, not much, but enough to remind you that this isn't soup. It's something older, thicker, a kind of stew that's forgotten how to flow. You lift the spoon to your mouth. The taste is well. Not good, but not offensive. It's warm, bland, saltless. The texture is uneven, lumps, strings, a whisper of onion, and the dull weight of starch. You chew even though you don't need to. It gives you something to do, around you. Others eat in silence. There is no conversation, only chewing, swallowing, the occasional cough. A man 3 seats away sneezes violently into his sleeve, then continues eating without pause. No one reacts, not even the dog under the table, which simply sighs and rolls over. The woman beside you is missing several teeth, but eats faster than anyone else. Her spoon never stops. Her eyes never meet yours. The boy across the table picks something from his bowl, examines it, then puts it back with a shrug. The fire crackles. The wind pushes at the shutters. The world narrows down to the act of getting this food inside of you before it cools too much and becomes truly tragic. You pause halfway through. You don't know why. Maybe it's the memory of better meals, long gone, or maybe just the realization that you will eat this again tomorrow, and the day after, and the day after that. If you're lucky enough to still be here, the bread softens slightly when dipped. That's a small victory. You tear off a piece, drag it through the bowl, lift it to your lips, chew, swallow. The warmth helps. It settles something deep in your gut, not satisfaction. Exactly, but stability. You take another bite, and another, and slowly. The bowl empties. The innkeeper passes by again, collecting dishes without comment. He sees your empty bowl, nods once, doesn't smile. He doesn't need to. You've played your part, done your duty, survived another meal. The table clears around you. Some leave, some linger. A man opens the front door and light spills in bright, cruel, cold. He vanishes into the street. You do not follow, not yet. You sit a moment longer, tracing the grain of the table with your finger. You notice initials carved into the woodled ones, deep and deliberate. Someone wanted to be remembered here. You wonder who. You wonder if they are. The smell of breakfast still lingers, not on the table, on you. You stand, adjust your cloak, and walk slowly toward the fire, letting the warmth find you again. Outside, the world waits. Inside, the bowl is empty, and you are full enough for now. You make your way toward the bar not out of need, but from a sense of strange obligation, as if facing the man who presides over this den of discomfort might grant you some understanding of how and why anyone survives here long enough to come back. Twice his back is turned when you approach bent over a pot, scraping something thick from the bottom with a wooden paddle that looks more like a weapon than a utensil. His shoulders are broad, wrapped in a wool tunic, so stained it could be mistaken for camouflage if filth were a battlefield. His head is bald, save for a thin ring of wiry black hair that curls up like smoke from a dying fire, and his ears twitch slightly when you draw closer. But he does not turn right away. He finishes his stirring, first, then slowly straightens and wipes his hands on his apron, which is stiff enough to clank. When moved, he turns and for the first time, you see his face, heavy-lidded eyes deeply set under thick brows, one brow lifted ever so slightly as if life itself had just asked a stupid question. His nose crooked, probably broken long ago and never reset, and his mouth pressed into a permanent line of suspicion. The skin around his cheeks is rough peppered with stubble and flecks of what you hope is flour. He looks at you as though calculating your exact worth in copper and finds the result disappointing. You open your mouth to say something, anything but. Forget what words are supposed to do in a moment like this. A grunt escapes him deep and resonant like a door slamming. In another room, he gestures at the counter which has several items laid out without labels or apparent logic. A chunk of something pale that might be cheese or soap. A basket of small eggs, some cracked, a few onions beginning to sprout, and a single wax candle with a bite taken from one end. You point cautiously toward the candle. He shakes his head once sharply, then slaps the counter with the paddle just beside your hand. It's not meant to threaten, but it's effective. You nod slowly, pointing. Instead, to the onions he grunts again, softer this time, possibly approval or mild disgust. It's hard to tell, the price is not spoken, but assumed you fumble in your pouch and find 2 coins. One dull, one duller. You place them on the counter. He lifts one to the light, bites it with a cracked tooth, then tosses both into a box beneath the bar with a clink and a snort. He hands you the onion, not with grace but as one might hand over a rock. They've just stepped on you. Thank him quietly. He does not answer. He is already turning back to the pot, resuming his slow stirring as if you never existed. The moment passes and you realize your shoulders have tightened your jaw. You breathe out, trying to loosen the invisible grip his presence placed on you. The innkeeper does not hate you specifically. He simply resents the effort it takes to be human in public and has long since opted out. The bar smells of ale, sweat, boiled bones, and something faintly sweet. You can place you back away, slowly taking your onion with you, a trophy from the front lines of negotiation. The man at the bar continues his work, unbothered, unchanging a piece of the inn, as fixed and ancient as the beams above. You pass a group of travelers huddled near the hearth. They glance at your onion, then look away quickly. Etiquette here demands that you never acknowledge another person's small victory or visible desperation. You sit again this time, closer to the fire, peel away the outer layer of the onion with your thumb, and listen to the low hum of the inn as it shifts. Groan settles into its mid-morning rhythm. Somewhere a lute twangs badly. A mug falls with a hollow thud, followed by a brief burst of laughter. You close your eyes for a moment and feel the heat of the flames creep across your knees, and the sting of onion juice in a cut you didn't know you had. And in that strange combination of warmth and pain and silence, you understand why the innkeeper needs no words, no welcome, no warmth. He knows something you're only starting to learn. No one survives a medieval inn by being kind, they survive by being permanent. She appears from behind a swinging door, so warped it no longer swings, just shudders and sighs as she pushes past it, hips leading the way, apron already stained from a dozen things you don't want to name. Her sleeves rolled up to the elbows, arms strong, not in the way of sculptures, but in the way of women who carry barrels and slap men. Without warning, her hair is tied back with something that might have once been ribbon, or might have been stolen from a chicken coop, and her face is unreadable, not in the way of poets but in the way of witnesses. She carries a tray balanced on one hand, mug sloshing slightly. Her gait steady like a soldier's march, and when she sets the tray down, it makes no sound, only settles as if knowing its place. She catches your eye, not intentionally, just in passing, and you see it, the 1,000-yard stare, not of war, but of too many nights, too many men, too many jokes. She had to laugh at, or else lose her job. She moves through the room like smoke weaving between tables, ducking a reaching hand without pausing, kicking a stool back into place without looking. Her fingers curl around the handle of a mug, and in the same motion, flick a fly from a man's collar and press 2 fingers into a different man's shoulder, just hard enough to remind him. This is not that kind of inn, and she is not that kind of woman. She doesn't speak unless she must, and when she does, her voice is low, flat, not cruel, just tired, like someone who has long ago accepted that. Kindness is something you rent, not own, and rarely get the deposit back on. You hear her laugh once, not at a joke, but at the fact that it was told. Her laugh is dry without mirth, but practiced to bark with no bite. You see a younger girl watching her from the corner, eyes wide, trying to memorize the movements, the shrugs, the half smiles, the raised eyebrow that says more than words ever could. The older barmaid notices, nods once, no smile, just approval, muted like everything. Here she pours you a drink without asking what you want. She knows what people like you drink, it's the same thing everyone like you drinks. And as the mug touches the table, you feel the briefest brush of her fingers, a warmth that lingers, not because it's soft, but because it's real. And you suddenly realize that she has seen more of this room than any priest ever saw of his church. She knows who lied, who cried, who bled, who laughed too loudly before vanishing at dawn. She knows the names people say and the ones they whisper. She knows what's hidden in the cellar, what was buried in the garden behind the stables, and what happened the night the merchant never woke up, and she carries all of it. Not in a diary or a confession, but in her joints, in the slow way she wipes the same spot twice because once is never enough in a place like this. You finish your drink, it's bitter and thin and somehow perfect, and when you look up again, she's gone, not vanished, just absorbed back into the place, like a ghost that only appears when needed, not for help but for reminder. This inn is not yours and never was, but she is its heart, a tired, astringent beating heart that somehow keeps everything from collapsing. You sit nearer the hearth now, not for comfort, but because it's the only place left where the light still flickers and the warmth feels vaguely personal. The fire itself is nothing grand, just a pile of logs hissing softly at the injustice of being burned, surrounded by bricks blackened with centuries of smoke and careless spit. The flames rise and fall in slow waves, licking the wood as if trying to remember what trees once were. The heat touches your face, first, then your hands, then your knees, and finally reaches somewhere deeper. A place you didn't know had gone cold. You stare into the embers, not searching for meaning, but because it's better than looking at the people around you. Those who sit in circles around the blaze like moths, pretending they're not dying for it. They say nothing, just glance occasionally, measuring one another, in glances half lit by firelight and half drowned in shadow. There's a man sharpening a knife on a flat stone, not because he needs it sharp, but because the sound tells others to stay away. There's a woman twisting her ring round and round her finger, eyes unfocused like she's still speaking to someone who isn't here anymore. There's a boy chewing bread as if it's a test of will, and an old man who coughs only when it's quiet. Just to remind everyone he's still there, you pull your cloak tighter around you, not from the cold, but because the fire makes you feel seen, and you are not ready for that kind of exposure. The logs shift suddenly with a sharp crack and sparks dance upward, curling toward the chimney like prayers too small to matter. A hush falls, then resumes slowly, as if conversation has to sneak past something heavy. The barmaid passes again, sets down a mug beside someone who doesn't thank her. She doesn't care. The fire pops again, and you think of home, wherever that is or was, and how the flames there never felt like this. Never so watchful, so judgmental, so ancient. You realize you're being observed not by one person, but by many, subtly a glance, here a sideways look there, not hostile, not exactly, more like curiosity with the edges sanded off. The way people in inns always look at someone new, wondering what you're running from, what you're carrying, who you might become. If the drink turns or the night stretches too long, the man sharpening his blade pauses not to rest, but to look at you, then continues without a word. The old man coughs again louder and spits into the coals. A hiss rises and no one flinches. You wonder what this fire has seen. How many hands have reached for it? How many faces have leaned too close? How many secrets have been whispered in its warmth, believing wrongly that the flames don't remember? But they do. They always do. The smell of burning pine is faintly sweet, almost festive, and that makes it worse because nothing here deserves sweetness, and certainly not celebration. The warmth begins to feel too close now, like a question asked twice. You shift your seat slightly, stare deeper into the orange and red, trying not to hear the voices around you, not to decode their silence, not to become another thing this fire keeps record of. But it's too late. Your shadow's already cast on the wall, flickering with the others, part of the room, part of the inn, part of whatever long, slow story is being told. Here night by night, flame by flame. He sits beside you without asking, because asking implies the choice is mutual, and in this inn very little is. The fire throws a faint glow across his face, enough to show the lines there, carved not by time, but by weather, by wind, and bad decisions. His cloak smells of cider and something older. Maybe wood smoke, maybe blood. His breath arrives before his words, thick, warm, slightly sour, and you feel it on your cheek. Before you hear the gravel of his voice, he doesn't greet you, just starts speaking as if continuing a conversation that neither of you were having, something about a bridge. He says, not far from here, not standing anymore, wasn't even raining. When it fell, just gave up all at once, sent 2 carts, 3 pigs, and a monk straight into the water. The pigs lived, the monk didn't, and he smiles like that's the funny part. You don't respond, not out loud. Anyway, just shift slightly, trying to make your silence clear. But he doesn't notice, or maybe he does and chooses to ignore it. His voice is low. Steady, meant for tales that start slow and end badly. He leans closer, elbows on knees, hands clasped like a preacher or a drunk. Depending on the lighting, says he once slept in a place better than this, had a bed with feathers in it. Real feathers, not straw, and a sheet that smelled like flowers, not mildew. He says it like a confession, like he's admitting a crime, or worse, a memory he shouldn't still have. You know, once maybe out of pity, maybe to encourage him to finish, but it only fuels him. He tells you about a woman in red, about a room with windows and wine, about the way she laughed, and how he hadn't heard that sound since you look away, hoping that might discourage him, but he continues undeterred. Now it's about a war, or a debt, or maybe both. His words start to slur together, forming shapes without borders. He scratches at his beard, mid-sentence, then picks something from his sleeve, examines it, flicks it into the fire. The flame doesn't react. Neither do you. The story shifts again. Now there's a river with no name and a man with no face and a lie told in the dark. He says he didn't mean to push. The man just lost his balance, both of them. Did. He says he watched the body float all the way down to the mill. Then he asks if you've ever seen someone float like that. You don't answer, not because you haven't, but because you don't want to talk about it. Not here, not now, not with this man who smells like fermented apples and unfinished prayers. He chuckles at your silence, calls you wise, says the wise ones never speak too soon, then falls quiet himself for a moment, just long enough for you to think it's over. But then he mutters something under his breath, something about regrets, something about teeth and fire and hunger. You don't catch all of it, and maybe that's for the best. Finally he stands, not gracefully more, like someone trying to remember how legs work. He taps his fingers once, twice against the side of your cup. Not hard, not soft, just enough to say I was here, then walks away, leaving behind only the warmth of his breath and a trail of something you can name. You look into your drink, a half full, half forgotten, and for a brief moment, you wonder if any part of that story was true, and if it was which part, and if it was, why it still felt like something inside you recognized it. The fire crackles beside you, indifferent. The seat next to you, still warm, and in that space between flame and silence, the inn seems to lean in just a little closer. You're not sure how you ended up at the table. Maybe it was the pull of laughter, or the clatter of wood on wood, or maybe just the subtle gravity of human weakness dressed up as luck. There are 4 men already seated, their eyes half-lidded, not with sleep, but calculation. Their hands quick and quiet, their smiles too practiced to mean anything. They barely look up when you approach, but one of them jerks his chin toward the empty stool, and that's all the invitation you'll get, or need. The table is rough, splintered, stained with ale, sweat, and things. Better not named at the center lies a cloth pouch open with dice, spilled like bones across the grain, smooth from use, worn soft at the edges. They glint faintly in the firelight, as if they still remember better hands than yours. You sit slowly, placing your last 2 coins on the wood, the same ones you paid for yesterday's meal, or maybe the ones you meant to save for tomorrow. No one says a word. Someone rolls the dice, they bounce once, twice, and land. With a thud that feels heavier than it should. There's a grunt. Then the coins shift hands, no joy, no anger, just the rhythm of the thing. Then it's your turn. The dice feel warm in your palm, like they've been waiting for you, and, immediately you're not welcome here. Not truly, you're a passing shadow in someone else's game. Still, you roll the dice, hit the table with a sound too loud in this quiet room, and when they stop, no one reacts. Not right away, then a sigh and a soft whistle, and your coins remain where they are not lost, not yet. The man across from you has a scar running from his temple to the corner of his mouth. It pulls when he smirks, and you wonder if he got it from a knife or from smiling too often. At the wrong time, he picks up the dice rolls without flair and wins. Just like that, your coins slide away. He doesn't even look at you. The next hand begins, you play again. Not because you think you'll win, but because it feels like you're supposed to lose something here. It's tradition, like touching the hearth or cursing the bucket. You toss the dice again, and this time, the loss is immediate. One roll, one nod, and your last coin vanishes into a palm that closes too quickly and too tightly to be gentle. You lean back slightly, heart beating faster than it should, over something so small, but it's not about the coins. It's about what they represented. Warmth, bread, a place to sit, without moving every few minutes, now gone with the flick of a wrist and a number that never cared. You hear someone laugh, not at you, not quite but near enough, and the air around the table thickens. The game moves on without you. Your stool no longer part of the circle, your presence already dissolving into the background. You stand quietly, brush crumbs from your cloak, as if that might restore dignity. The man with the scar finally looks up just once, his eyes dark and unreadable, and in them you see, not malice, but a kind of boredom. As if your loss was neither amusing nor interesting, just inevitable. You nod to. No one turn away and walk back toward the fire, which now feels colder. Somehow, though it burns just the same, you sit again in the same place as before, but lighter now, missing something more than just money, and in the hush that follows, you understand what every innkeeper, every gambler, every storyteller in this place already knows. You never play to win. You play because losing reminds you you're still alive. You climb the stairs again, not because you want to, but because the night leaves you no other place to go. The fire downstairs is burned low, the tables have emptied, and the barmaid has vanished into whatever corner of the world she sleeps in. If she sleeps at all, the hallway greets you with its usual complaints, groaning floorboards, soft drafts, and shadows that feel thicker than before. Your boots land gently out of habit, not stealth, but caution, and still, the planks beneath your feet creak like old bones, each step a small argument with the building itself. You reach your room, or what you've chosen to call a room, though nothing here is truly yours. The door pushes open easier than last time, and the air inside is still heavy, stale touched by breath and oil and the lingering odor of boots that have never been cleaned. The straw mattress hasn't improved in your absence. If anything, it's grown colder, stiffer, more aware of its flaws, and you lower yourself onto it without Grace pulling your cloak. Over your shoulders, curling into yourself like something half buried in leaves. You close your eyes and try to listen to silence, but silence here is never quiet. It's filled with coughs, distant murmurs, the hollow thud of someone tripping over a step, a wheeze from the room across the hall, and always the soft tick and pop of the timber adjusting its ancient limbs. The floorboards beneath your body creak, not just from weight, but from memory. You swear they remember every sleeper, every shift, every whispered argument and broken vow. And they whisper back, not in words but in movement, a low, unsettling song of discontent. Your breath falls into rhythm with it, slow, uneven, deeper than comfort, but not yet sleep. A mouse scurries near the wall, maybe two, maybe more. The room is full of tiny things with names. You'll never know, but you feel them pressing in around you, sharing your warmth, your space, your night. A door slams somewhere, a voice curses, muffled and short. A laugh follows, but it doesn't last long. Laughter never does. Hear the window rattles, though there is no wind, only the pressure of old glass. Remembering storms, you roll onto your side, hoping that a new angle might confuse the discomfort out of your body. But it only reminds you that the straw is uneven, that your shoulder has found a hidden knot, and that your boots are still slightly damp and far too close to your face. You consider getting up, moving, sleeping downstairs, by the hearth, or not at all. But your limbs are tired in that deep, quiet way that means surrender. And so, you lie still, letting the aches map themselves across you like an unwanted blanket. Your mind floats unfocused, dragging fragments of thought from one corner of memory to another. You almost drift, but then a creak snaps you back sharper, louder directly beneath you, and you wonder if it's someone walking or something settling, or simply the inn reminding you that sleep here is not a gift, but a negotiation, one that must be earned or stolen or both. You close your eyes. Again, breathe through your nose. Try to imagine the smell of pine or lavender or anything other than unwashed wool and sour dust. But it doesn't work. The inn seeps in through the cracks, not just into your lungs, but into your thoughts until you are dreaming with your eyes open of things that never happened and things that did. The night deepens, the noises thin, but never vanish, and eventually your body gives in before your mind does, and you slip downward slowly, clumsily, not into rest, but into something that passes for it in a place like this. The straw scratches your skin, no matter how you lie, a constant whisper against your legs, your arms, the back of your neck, like tiny voices reminding you that nothing here was made for comfort. The cloak you use as a blanket does little more than trap your own heat in sharp, uneven patches, warm at the chest, cold at the toes, one shoulder exposed to the chill that leaks through the stones. Like breath from the earth itself, the dreams don't come softly. They come sideways, jagged, flickering, half memory, half invention. Your mind pulling images from things it barely remembers. A hand gripping yours too tightly, a window with no glass, a forest that never ends, a scream heard underwater. You shift trying to chase them away, but they only change shape now. You're at a feast that smells like smoke and blood. You're reaching for a cup and find a dead bird in it. You blink and suddenly you're in a church or a barn, or someone else's mouth. The dream shifts again. Someone is whispering in your ear in a language you understand only in sleep. You try to speak back, but your tongue is full of dust. You wake for a moment, or think you do, staring at the underside of the roof, barely visible in the dark. The beams seem closer than before, as if they've leaned in to watch you. You close your eyes again. Not because you want to sleep, but because opening them doesn't make anything better. Something moves near your feet. Not loud, not fast, just enough for the straw to sigh. You stay still, hoping whatever it is finds someone else more interesting. The itch starts at your wrist, a tiny bite, then another at your calf, then one behind your knee. You slap at them gently, half asleep, half resigned, knowing it's fleas or something like them, because everything else has already crawled across you tonight. The man across the room coughs again, his breath whistling through cracked lips, followed by a soft groan, and the unmistakable sound of someone scratching somewhere near the wall. A mouse chirps its soft complaint, and then all is quiet again, too quiet, too still, and you realize you've begun to count your own heartbeat to anchor yourself to something real, something slow and steady that doesn't change without warning. The dream begins again. This time a hallway longer than any you've ever seen, lined with doors all slightly ajar, all leaking light and wind and whispering your name. You pick one open, step through and find yourself here again, in the same room, in the same straw, in the same air, with the same aches and the same blanket that smells faintly of wax and old sweat. And you wonder if it's a dream inside a dream, or just the inn itself pressing against the edges of your sleep until it becomes the only shape you can hold on to. Eventually your mind lets go, whether from exhaustion or surrender. You don't know. But the darkness takes over completely, and even the fleas rest for a while. Sometime deep into the night, when the silence grows too perfect to be trusted, and the fire downstairs has burned itself into memory. You hear it, a sound that doesn't belong, not the creak of wood or the wheeze of sleep, but something softer, more deliberate, the faint press of a foot against stone, the hush of fabric, brushing the edge of a door. You keep your eyes closed for a moment, heart slowing itself as if trying to disappear inside your ribs. But the sound comes again, and this time closer. A knock not on your door, but one just down the hall, light as breath and twice as secret. You open your eyes slowly. The room is dark, darker than before, the coals in the hearth barely glowing now. Just a pulse of red in a world of black. The figure on the other bed still sleeps undisturbed, mouth open, face turned to the wall. You hear another knock, a whisper this time, a name. Maybe not yours, but not entirely. Unlike it, you sit up, cloak falling from your shoulders, the cold immediately reminding you of where you are and what you are not. The curtain over the window barely deserves the name, a piece of linen so threadbare it filters neither light nor air, only offering the illusion of privacy from a world that stopped caring what it saw. Long ago. It moves slightly now. Not from wind, there is no wind, just the breath of the building itself. Shifting, settling, and the movement feels wrong. Not just natural fluttering, but something touched, pushed you. Rise without thinking. Bare feet against the floor again. Feeling every crack, every splinter, every drop of condensation. As if the inn itself is pressing its details into your souls. You move toward the window, pull the curtain aside, and see nothing. Just darkness and the vague outline of the courtyard below. But something was there recently. You know it, the way animals know when they're being watched. You let the curtain fall and it doesn't hang right. Slightly twisted, like someone else had done the same a moment before you returned to your bed. If only to pretend that you never moved. You lie down again. Close your eyes, keep your breathing even. A skill you've learned in places like this, because the night doesn't end just because you want it to. And visitors don't always knock loudly. Some enter through doors, others through dreams, and some come only to listen. You hear the hallway floor creak once more, then nothing. The silence folds back in on itself, tight, secure, pretending it never let anything through the building, exhales, and so, do you eventually sleep? Returns not as peace, but as the absence of resistance, and the curtain sways once more, just slightly, as if bidding you goodnight in the language of things that never speak aloud. It starts just after the building settles again, when your body has finally begun to unravel into something like sleep. Not true sleep, but that soft edge where your thoughts no longer make sense, and time begins to fold inward. It comes without warning, like a storm slipping under a door. A sound so violent, so unholy in its suddenness, that your eyes snap open before your mind has even asked them to. It is not a scream or a crash. It is a snore, deep guttural. Not the gentle rhythmic kind, but the full-bodied rattle of a man who has no shame and perhaps no functioning nose. At first you think it might be the man in your room, but no. The sound is too loud, too distant, and somehow vibrating through the wall itself. It rises again longer, this time a tremor of breath that turns into a kind of death rattle, then stops only to start again, stronger as if whoever is making it has found a new gear. It pulses through the beams, through the floorboards. It makes the candle stub on the table tremble slightly. The sound is less like sleep and more like judgment, like someone gargling with nails and holy water. You pull the cloak over your ears, but it's no use. The snore is not hindered by fabric or wood. It is a spiritual experience shaking the very idea of silence and rebuilding it in its own image. You wonder for a moment if it's some beast, some demon returned from the Crusades to haunt this inn. But no, it's worse than that. It's a monk, and you know this because earlier in the evening, he introduced himself loudly, proudly, with the confidence of a man who carries God in one hand and a wineskin in the other. He had no room to sleep in, so they gave him the hallway, a blanket and a bench, and a promise that the night would pass quickly. It hasn't his robes trail from under the bench like the hem of a forgotten altar cloth, and his breath fills the entire second floor with the sound of repentance being swallowed whole. You try to tune it out, counting backwards from 100, imagining rain or wind or the soft breath of animals, but nothing helps because the snore keeps mutating, growing, taking new shapes. 1 minute, it's a wheeze, the next, a whistle, then something like a low chant, as if his body is still praying while his mind sleeps. A door creaks, someone murmurs, and the sound is joined by another, a sympathetic snore from somewhere down the hall, as if answering a call, and together they form a choir of nocturnal torture. The building moans once as if in sympathy, and you lie there eyes wide open, staring into the dark. Not because you're awake, but because resistance is futile. The monk rolls over, the snore catches pauses. You hold your breath, maybe, but no. It resumes louder than before, a triumphant return to form, and somewhere downstairs, the dog whimpers a single lonely yelp and falls silent. You accept that sleep will not be yours. Not yet, not while holy men shake the rafters with the thunder of their lungs. You press your face into the straw, whispering your defeat to no one, and the monk snores on, undisturbed, a godly avalanche of breath echoing through a night that refuses to end. The scream comes suddenly slicing through the thick wool of the night, like a blade too clean to be accidental. It's sharp, high, and human, not the kind of cry one makes from surprise or drunken clumsiness, but the kind that's torn from the chest against the will, the kind that wakes something old in your bones. You freeze not in panic, but in a kind of stillness, older than fear. Your body remembering without instruction, that movement draws attention, that noise invites notice. The room doesn't react. At first the monk's snore continues as if nothing has changed. The rats in the rafters pause for half a breath, then resume their scuttling. But you hold your breath, listening, not just with your ears, but with your skin. The silence that follows the scream is worse than the scream itself. Too clean, too deliberate, too long. No answering shout, no rush of boots, just quiet. So total it hums, you glance toward the window, curtains still limp, no flicker of torchlight, no shadow rushing past. And yet something happened, something is still happening, just out of sight, down in the alley, or behind the stable, or at the corner, where the inn's lamplight fades into dark. Someone whimpered into the void, and the void did not answer around you. The others do not stir, or if they do so inwardly quietly. The way people learn to, when they've lived long enough to know that not all cries are invitations. Some are warnings, some are echoes, some are bait. You think about rising, stepping to the window, lifting the cloth to look down into the street, but your body does not move because it knows better, and so do the others. The beds remain filled, the benches undisturbed, no muttered prayers, no drawn knives. Just the quiet agreement of those who've survived too many nights and too many stories that ended in gutters. Even the dog downstairs does not bark. It whines briefly, then retreats back beneath the hearth, its instincts keener than yours. You lie there listening, waiting, hoping the scream was a mistake, a nightmare, a fox cornered behind a wall. Anything but what you know it was. There's a creak on the stair, not loud, not purposeful, just the building reminding you it's awake too. The coals in the hearth downstairs pop, once a tiny explosion of warmth in a room that feels colder. By the second someone coughs, someone rolls over, and the night resumes its rhythm, as if nothing had broken, as if no one cried out and vanished, as if silence were a blanket to be pulled back over what doesn't bear. Remembering you curl tighter, not from cold, but from something nameless that sits in your gut like a stone, and try to convince yourself that if you don't move, if you don't breathe too loudly, the darkness won't find your name next. It takes hours or maybe minutes, but eventually the fear dulls. Not because it fades, but because your body can't carry it anymore. Your muscles unravel one by one, like old rope giving way under its own weight. Your thoughts blur not into peace, but into fog, thick and gray, without beginning or end. The monk still snores, but you stop hearing it, or maybe you just forget that it matters. The straw beneath you shifts slightly, a slow rustle near your feet, and you don't flinch. Not now, because you know what it is. A rat small, thin-boled from hunger, curling up beside your ankle as if you're part of the furniture, now part of the heat. The rat settles, first breathes in, tiny size, paws twitching, as it dreams of crumbs or corners or warmth that doesn't come from a stranger's skin. You feel its body against yours, a thread of life in the dark, and somehow it's not repulsive, it's honest, unashamed. It doesn't pretend to be more than it is, and that's more comfort than the inn has offered you all night. Your eyes drift shut again, lashes heavy. The fire has burned to memory, and the room breathes around you in shallow, unsteady rhythm. A cough, a mutter, a snort from the hall, then nothing. Your mind loosens like cloth. In water, floating thoughtless without shape. You dream of doors of long corridors filled with faces you've never seen. All of them watching, none of them moving. The air is thick with questions you can't answer and hands you never see. Brush your shoulders and vanish before you turn. You're back in the bed before you ever left. And the rat is gone, or maybe you are. The dreams shift without warning. Now you're walking a road made of ash lined with barrels full of teeth. And no one seems surprised. You speak to someone who has your voice, but not your eyes. And you both pretend not to notice. You wake once with a jolt. Heart-racing breath. Shallow, but there's no danger. Just the echo of something you never fully saw. You turn over the straw, sighs again, and you press your face into the cloak, and this time, you don't dream at all. You drift not asleep, not awake, somewhere in between, where sound and thought dissolve, where your fingers twitch, but you don't feel them, and your name has no weight, and even the cold has forgotten you. The inn hums around you alive, tired, its heart beating in the floor, in the walls, in the breath of the rat that sleeps deeper than you do, and for once you are not awake to envy it. It doesn't arrive with sunlight or bird song or anything soft. It comes with a slam somewhere downstairs, a door maybe, or a barrel dropped too hard, followed by a voice too loud for any hour, and certainly too sharp for sleep. Your eyes open, reluctantly, dry, unfocused, your body, heavier than it should be. Your mouth tastes of wool and ash and something sour. You can name the room as gray, not with light, but with absence of dark. A slow, sickly gray that seeps through the cracks around the shutter, leaking across the walls like a stain. The fire has long since died. The straw beneath you feels colder, damper, flatter, and you are stiff in a way that makes your limbs feel borrowed. The monk is still snoring, although now it sounds more like a dying forge wheezing smoke. The rat is gone without ceremony, without thanks, just the ghost of its warmth near your ankle and a faint smell of dried grain. You sit up slowly, each vertebra announcing itself like a protest. The blanket your cloak really is tangled around. Your knees in your satchel lies where you left it untouched, not because it's hidden, but because no one here wanted what little you had. You rub your face, feel the grime, the imprint of straw on your cheek. Your hair smells of smoke, your fingers of something metallic and old. You stand not with energy, but resignation, stepping onto the floor, which greets your bare feet, with the same chill it offered last night, unchanged, uncaring from the hallway. You hear the clatter of bowls, the mutter of voices, the sound of liquid poured and boots scraped, and someone groaning in a language that might just be pain. You gather your things, the motion, automatic muscle before memory. Your boots go on, stiff wet, not quite dry, never quite dry. Your hand rests briefly on the latch, your breath fogs the air, and you open the door into the same hallway where nothing has moved and everything has aged. You pass by the bench where the monk slept now. Empty, only his scent remains thick and blessed and sour. Downstairs the room is already half full, the innkeeper behind the bar pouring from a jug without looking. The same bowl waits at your usual place as if the night never happened and you never left. You take your seat slowly because pretending takes effort. Now you lift the spoon slowly because chewing is the only movement that doesn't hurt. And when you take that first bite, it tastes like the end of a long mistake. The bread is harder than memory. The drink is warmer than expected, and the faces around you are the same, just a little more tired and a little less curious. The morning gives you nothing. No smile, no welcome, no light, no second chance. Only the simple truth of being here, again breathing again, sitting in the same chair as yesterday, scraping the same bowl, watching the same fire, trying to remember why you came, and knowing you won't leave until something worse forces you to. You don't say goodbye because no one expects it, and no one would answer if you did. You just stand slowly creaking, more than the floorboards, sling your satchel over one shoulder. Feel the itch along your ribs, already starting to bloom. A tiny colony of regrets, you gather what little you have, which fits easily into one hand, and glance around one last time. Not out of sentiment, but because habit makes you check for things you never owned. The others don't look up as you pass. The barmaid walks by, carrying a tray stacked with bowls, her eyes locked on nothing. The innkeeper gives a grunt that could mean anything or nothing. You step through the doorway into the street, and the light hits you like a slap. Not warm, not welcoming, just there, indifferent as the morning. The air smells of wet stone and coal smoke and pigs. Somewhere nearby, squeal with the urgency. Only pigs know your boots, suck briefly in the mud as you walk a few paces away from the door, then stop just long enough to scratch the back of your leg and confirm what you already knew. Something small and alive has claimed you as its new host, a gift from the mattress or the monk or the blanket that never quite covered your feet. You don't mind, not really. It's almost comforting, a little souvenir from a place that refuses to let people leave untouched. You look back once the inn squats behind you, hunched and sullen, its windows dim, its door already swallowing someone new. It doesn't beckon or wave or whisper. It just waits. It always waits. You start walking again down a road that doesn't care who you are or where you've been. The sky above is the color of old linen, the clouds hanging like overfilled sacks, and with each step, you feel the inn receding, not in distance but in weight, like a fever breaking or a bad song fading from memory. Still it clings a little in the shoulders, in the back of the throat, in the crease behind your ear, where straw and sweat conspired through the night, and though you'll wash and walk and sleep elsewhere in time, the inn stays with you, not as a place, but as a smell, as a sound, as the certainty that somewhere a man still snores like judgment, and a woman still wipes the same spot on a table that never gets clean, and a rat sleeps with more peace than most men earn. And you scratch again, smile slightly at nothing, and keep walking a little wearier, a little hungrier, and slightly itchier. And now you have left the inn. The creaks, the whispers in the dark, the sighs of the ancient walls, all are now only faint echoes behind you. Though your feet still walk, a part of you still lies in the damp straw and the dim flicker of the fire on the stone walls. So now, let your body settle, slowly, like the last breath of an old flame. Close your eyes. Listen to the small sounds of the night, the crackling of the fire in the distant hearth, the wind rustling through the cracked wood, the sound of the world receding. And when all is quiet, you know you have arrived. Now let yourself sink, no rush, no struggle. Just let the fire continue to burn gently, and you just like that fall asleep.